Thank you very much, Francis. Well, today the inaugural Women in Dialogue conference has concluded in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. More than 1,000 women from 15 countries gathered to map the way forward for the inclusion of women, as well as to find opportunities presented by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. While closing the gathering, Army Colonel and entrepreneur Granny Seape thanked former First Lady Zanele Mbeki for selflessly pursuing empowerment of the women on the African continent. She implored women to support each other.
I've heard many stories this week about the challenges women face to enter the political space, the economic space, and many other spaces. We can't expect a male-dominated government structure or government structures to really look out for us. We have to look out for ourselves. And to that, we need to be part of the decision-making processes. But I also hear too often, it is not only men who keep the political door locked against women. But when I look around this room, I don't want to subscribe to that. I don't think there's a single woman in this room who would be a gatekeeper. Even if you were thinking of being a gatekeeper, if you are in this room, forget that idea. Let's look out for each other.
Well, for more on the inaugural African Women in Dialogue, we are now joined in studio by SABC's Ntakoana and Ngatane. Of course, you have been there throughout the course of the afternoon. We thank you very much for your time and coming all the way back to studio. Essentially, what was different about the African Women in Dialogue?
Well, all I can say is what a week, Shantae, because, I mean, these were women who come from all walks of life. 1,000 women, 15 countries, executives, business people, grassroots, former politicians, current politicians, and all in one room. And they started with connecting with themselves. And I know that on the first day when I spoke to some of them, pulled them out of the sessions, a lot of them came out of there crying, and they were saying to me, it's either they've heard such a sad story or they've heard such a good story that all of them made them cry. So basically to unleash their potential, to understand what they're capable of. And on the second day already, they were saying that they feel like they're different people, that they can accomplish anything. And so they go back to their communities. 9 provinces of South Africa and the other countries, you have women who say that they'll stay together, connected, but to achieve inclusion of women, especially in the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Well, speaking of that Fourth Industrial Revolution, of course, it is a buzzword. But, some of the women in attendance, some of them don't even have smartphones. They don't necessarily have access to the internet. How does one actually know whether they grasped and they understood what was actually being discussed at this dialogue?
Look, we're talking about presentations from professors from the University of Johannesburg, from Wits University. You're talking about executives from Microsoft, but you're also talking about ordinary, elderly ladies. We had, for instance, there the former president of the Pan-African Parliament, Gertrude Mangela, from Tanzania, who says she had brought her granddaughter with her who has just graduated in chemical engineering, and she calls her mentor in technology, because she says that whatever I need to know, she tells me how to do it. But essentially these interactions even went as far as to show women the applications of technology in agriculture, in health, in small businesses. The resident UN women coordinator, and that is Ms. Gituku Shongwe, made an example of her mother back in Kenya, who is in farming and uses new applications like M-Pesa to do payments, but also uses a smartphone to know what's going on in the world. So at the end of the day, it was broken down to them, from the first and the second and the third revolution up to what we're talking about in terms of the usage of computers and the internet, and how important they are, and how important it is for them to upskill themselves, whether it is, with interactions between each other, or to actually go and sit in a classroom somewhere and learn something about the internet and the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Of course, and the power that women have. Speaking of that, women in leadership and politics are said to, still remain in front of challenges, or rather they have lots of challenges in front of them, despite a woman actually being 51% of the population on the continent. Why are we still facing these challenges, and why is this so?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, apart from the fact that we come from a society that believes that men are the ones who are supposed to be in power, is the resources that women have at their disposal to run for office. So one of the issues that was discussed there was, shouldn't women be moving towards where there is a fund that helps them to run for politics? Let's look at this to hear what some of the women had to say.
Our economic at the moment in our country, Zimbabwe, we cannot even get basic commodities. It's an issue which affects women. And also on the political aspect, I think you already know that the last elections which came up in Zimbabwe in July, many women did not succeed. Why? Because we thought we were going to align the laws like the 50-50 gender SADC protocol of 2008.
Parmi les candidats aux élections présidentielles en RDC.
This is one of the problems. Women can't access this kind of election because of the huge participation, like the huge money amount they're supposed to give. So this is really one of the problems. Those women, even if they want to go and participate to the election, they can't because the government don't help. That doesn't help a lot. So this is really a huge issue.
Ça montre le niveau de pauvreté de la femme congolaise.
Women political leaders generally do not have the resources to run for presidency. And so one of the things that we're trying to pull is a fund to be able to actually fund women so that they can run for office, because they need the resources to do so.
Well, that is Anne where she's the UN Women representative, saying that actually what is needed, and as the women were saying, their biggest challenge is resources, the money, because at the end of the day, when women have money, it's for their families, it's to bring up children, and so they would rather prioritize that as opposed to being leaders. So that's how they get left behind. But this is one of the major things that came out of this conference.
Sure. Thank you very much for your time this evening. That was SABC's Ntakoana Ngatane on the inaugural African Women in Dialogue as it concluded today.